Good morning, guys. So today I thought before we hit the roads, direction Czech Republic, I thought I would take this moment whilst I'm nice and dry inside to walk you guys through the gear that I've taken with me on this trip and the bags that I take and where I fasten them on the bike. Yeah, let's get straight into it. Alright, so kicking things off is the duffel bag. Now this is the first bag that I undo when I reach camp, and that's why I have these particular objects in there. It's just a 60-litre roll bag, totally waterproof, made of tarpaulin, super cheap and cheerful, but has served me already for 4 or 5 different trips and served me very loyally, so that's why I've stuck by him. What's the first thing in here? I just have a rain jacket in there so that when I arrive at camp, if I want to take my motorbike jacket off and switch to something lighter whilst I'm building the tent that obviously doesn't have all the armor in it, which restricts movement, but if it's raining, then I will throw on my rain jacket, so that's why it's the first thing that's there. Then I have in general in this bag everything that I need to build my sleeping setup for that night. So in here I of course have my tent, which is the Bexer Outpost 3. I just bought this tent, semi happy with it. It's a massive tunnel tent. It's also an out of first, which essentially means if it's raining, you can build the construction and the sleeping tent is hooked on the inside. So it means, or the sleeping cabin is hooked on the inside. So it means that if it's pouring with rain, in theory, you can still build it in the rain and your sleeping cabin won't get wet. That's the advantage of these versus inner first tents, which is where essentially you build the inner construct first, all the while it can pour into that construct, and then you cover it with a waterproof covering. So yeah, that's why I chose this, and it also has a big porch at the front, so you've seen this in some of the videos so far. Put all my gear in there and keep it dry overnight. Downside is it's massive and takes quite a long time to clear up in the morning and to dry all the condensation off it from the night before, as well as any water, dew that's sitting on the outside of the tent. And I always recommend to dry off your tent completely before you pack it away again. So yeah, I'm sort of happy with it. What I like is that it's compact. I like that I have so much space in it. And it doesn't weigh too much. I've had tents much more than this that have a similar pack size. Yeah, so what I'm considering in the future is actually to go to a much simpler setup with just a tarp that I would stretch out so I have a covered over bit to put all my gear if it's raining overnight and also to cook under, and then just have a very, very simple single man tent with no space for any gear on the inside, just literally for me to be covered over, and that I would also put under the tarp. And that would be a much smaller setup and would be much faster to build. But yeah, for now, Outpost 3, good tent. What I also have for that is the ground sheet. That's just a protective layer that you put on the ground to protect it from any stones or twigs or anything like that that could cut up the floor. And also is an additional waterproof protection to keep you off the wet ground. I think it has a hydrostatic head of 10,000 millimeters. So the tent will keep you dry, that much is certain. What else do I have in the duffel? I also have part of the tent. I have some guy lines and I have some supporting posts. These are basically used for the porch. If it is raining, I open up the front door on the porch and I can essentially fasten it such that I can have an additional area to sit under in front of the tent, which is great. Then I also have in here my camping chair, which I'm super happy with. I've had this for a few years. It's a Helinox, I'm not sure what the name of the actual product is, Chair 1. It's the Helinox Chair 1. Super compact, really, really comfortable and lightweight, and I love it. I take it on every single trip with me. All right, what else I got? Extra set of stakes for the tent. I have a beanie in case it gets cold at night. I have my camping table, which is also super compact. This is a bit of a luxury. It's not a necessity, but it does give you an additional surface to keep all of your cooking set up off the ground. That's primarily what I use it for. I use it to cook on, use it to chop on. That's pretty much it. But very useful if you have the space, useful to take with you. Then I just have a brush so that when I'm clearing up the tent in the mornings, I can just brush away the dirt. And finally, I have a hammer to hammer in the stakes. This is, again, a luxury, not a necessity. If you could also find a rock and hammer in the stakes of the rock. I just like to have that because I have been camping a few times where the ground was rock solid and I couldn't get it in just by stamping on it, and there were no rocks around. So that's why I got the hammer, and since I got it, I haven't traveled without it. It also has a nice little hook so you can pull up the stakes in the morning. What else do I have in here? I also have some kitchen roll. Super important. It's a godsend when you're camping. It's not the most environmentally friendly, unfortunately. However, it is very, very useful to have something to dry stuff with, or to clean stuff with, to wipe stuff off. I use it primarily for the tent in the mornings when I'm wiping off the condensation from the inside, and when I'm wiping off the dew from the outside of the tent so I can pack it away dry. That's primarily what I use it for. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So this duffel is the first thing that I get off the bike when I arrive at camp. Everything else stays on the bike during that time, stays dry obviously because it's all in waterproof bags, and then I can just get my tent set up, get an initial cover set up, and then I can put all my bags in there and set up the rest of my camp for the night. So that's why that comes off first, and it's easily accessible, and this sits on the back seat, so I strap this across between the two rear panniers. All right, what do we have next? So coming to the panniers. This is my whole sleeping setup. So this I take off next as soon as I build the tent. This is the next pannier that I take off the bike. Essentially, it just has everything relating to sleeping. So it has my Thermarest ProLite sleeping pad, very compact. I bought it for a hiking trip that I went on with my brother in Norway, where space is much more of a restraint. It is super lightweight, doesn't take up a lot of space. However, it's not the warmest. I think it has an R rating of 2.6 or something, which is good for sort of temperatures up to maybe 2 or 3 degrees. As soon as it gets colder than that, it's not really warm enough. But I have been using it for years. I didn't want to invest the money to buy a new one because there's so many other pieces of gear that I want to buy before that. So I have it. It works. It's great if you're hiking. If you're on a bike and you can take a little bit more weight, take up a little bit more space, there are warmer pads that you can buy. What else do I have in here? I have my sleeping pillow, also from Thermarest. This is an awesome piece of kit that I just bought for this trip. So it's the first trip that I've been on with it. Essentially, it's filled with the recycled materials, the foam filling that they use on their pads, on their sleeping pads. It has a lifetime warranty. Anything goes wrong with it, you just call up Thermarest and they will fix it for you. But the main thing that I love about it is it's the closest thing to a real pillow I've ever come when camping. When I first started, I was using an air pillow, super basic, €12 piece of garbage, basically. It was so uncomfortable, it kept moving around underneath my head. It didn't feel anything remotely like an actual pillow, and I slept really badly with it. Then I switched to another pillow that had a sort of foam layer, and then a zipper opening in the inside so that you could put clothes in to bolster it up a little bit. But it was too thin, it was very low to the ground, so I was found my neck was arching over. And this thing is awesome because it actually feels like a real pillow. Basically, this is as far as it folds down. Obviously, it takes up more space. That is the downside, but the upside is massive. You will sleep a lot better if you sleep with a proper, nice, foamy pillow. So really, really, really recommend that. All right, moving on. I have my sleeping bag in here from Fjällräven. This is the Abisko 3 Seasons. The comfort temperature is 2 degrees. I have pushed it and slept in, -1 is probably the coldest I've ever camped in. I was quite cold in the night, or let's better say I would have been very cold in the night if I hadn't piled on masses of layers. So I had about 5 or 6 different layers on me that I wore going into the sleeping bag. Yeah, if you have a good, or let's say if you have a sleeping bag that's designed for cold temperatures, you wouldn't need to layer quite as much, but you always need to layer a little bit. You're out exposed in the elements. But it has served me well. I've had it for 3 years now. I've taken it on every single trip with me. I think in the future at some point, because I don't want to just restrict camping to the summer, spring and autumn, I want to also be able to go in the winter, I will pick up a warmer sleeping bag. I have a few ones that I have my eye on, but they're very expensive. But I would recommend this sleeping bag as a good starting point. You can sleep with it in the vast majority of conditions, and it's only really if you're a die-hard camper that you're going to want to camp when it's significantly colder than for which that was designed. What else do I have in here? I have my sleeping bag liner. This is just an Egyptian cotton, super cheap and cheerful. I've had it for 3 or 4 years. Does the job and adds 1 or 2 degrees warmth to your sleeping setup as well. Plus it keeps all the sweat and grime and dirt off your sleeping bag that you released obviously in the night from your body. So it also extends the lifetime of your sleeping bag. Then finally, in the sleeping bag setup, I have my camping lights, which I keep in a camera bag, which is way too bulky and big, but it's the only thing that I found at home that was padded enough. There's a really simple little LED USB rechargeable camping light from Bare Bones. Just a nice aesthetic, I think. Very lightweight and compact. You just twist it on like that, and it has a natty little hook, so you can just hook it on the inside of the tent. All right. So, coming to the other pannier. This here is my whole cooking setup. Again, it's a roll bag pannier, super basic, soft luggage. Got it very cheaply on eBay, and yeah, happy with it. It serves its purpose, cheap and cheerful, keeps my stuff dry, that's what matters. I have a book, which, yes, you might question, why is that sitting in the cooking setup? That should actually be in the sleeping setup. So in here I have a series of dry bags. First dry bag is this guy. So it's a dry bag within a dry bag, just to be extra certain that the gear stays nice and dry. In here I just have all my cooking stuff. I have a very compact setup with pots and pans and 2 foldable bowls from Sea to Summit that just sit at the base there. Love those because you basically use them as a plate, or you can fold up the sides and use it as a bowl. Super, super practical. I use 2 of them because when I'm chopping stuff, I put all the prepped veggies into one bowl, and the other bowl obviously I'm eating from. It's just useful for cooking to have 2 bowls. In here, in the insides, I have my ladle, spatula, and gas canister. So quite a lot in a small space. I have my cooking stove, cheap and cheerful. This is the Maple Firefly. Yeah, good product. Very simple little stove and inexpensive. Then I have a chopping board from MSR, simple little foldable chopping board. Only really needed if you're planning on cooking. Obviously, if you're eating dry meals, you don't need to worry about anything like that. However, if you are cooking, super useful to have. I love to use this, so I'm very pleased with this purchase. Again, inexpensive. You can also use the bottom of the Sea to Summit bowls. They have essentially a hard plastic base that is also designed that you can use as a chopping board, but it's quite small. This is significantly larger, that's why I like to use that. Then I have my little spice shaker, which is fantastic. Salt, pepper, paprika, curry, you know, all your various spices that you might need. Very useful for cooking. Then a couple small things. I have a cleaning sponge. I have a cup. I have an additional gas canister in case the one in the pot runs out, so it's always good to have a spare. Then I also carry with me a chef's knife, foldable chef's knife, which is great. That, again, not expensive, but makes a big difference when you're chopping. Just folds out like that, and has a really nice straight cutting edge, which just makes chopping and prepping veg or whatever you're prepping much easier. And then I also have this. I haven't actually used this yet. Very cheap little knife that I bought on Amazon, made in Sweden. I think it was 12 euros, stainless steel. Apparently lasts a lifetime. And I bought it essentially just for prepping wood, for cutting out kindling. I haven't used it yet. I have made some fires, but I had fire starters with me, so I cheated a little bit. But I have it just in case I don't have the luxury of having fire starters in the future. Then I can nonetheless start a fire by having a knife. And obviously there's a million other reasons to carry a knife with you. And then I just have some washing up liquids, but that's not sexy or interesting, so I'm not going to show that to you. Then in the other dry bag, I have all my food. I won't get into that. I just have some tins of chickpeas and a couple of onions in there, and then lots of dry food. My fire starters that I was just referring to, these little cheats, are fantastic though, but obviously luxury, and if you don't have these, you need a way to start a fire nonetheless. Then I have a wind shield for the stove in case it's super windy conditions. You can still protect the flame. I made a mistake when I was camping in Italy about a month ago. I didn't use a wind protector, and the flame blew across the stove and actually burned through the cable, so it was unusable. So that's why I recommend to use that if it's windy. Yeah, and that's it. All right, moving on. Lots of gear, as you can see. Most people, when they see pictures of my bike and the amount of gear on it, they're like, what the hell are you taking? So this video is for you guys to understand as well why I have so much gear, and how there would be ways to reduce it, but the primary way to reduce the amount would be not to camp and to stay in hotels along the way. This is a super important bag. This is my tank bag from Givi. It's a really nice little tank lock bag. So I have like a plate that I attached to the petrol tank of my Himalayan, and then this just locks into place. Really practical. What do I keep in here? In here I keep my drone. I keep a little pouch with all the cables, charging cables and wall plugs and all that sort of thing. I keep my GoPro accessories in here, so there I have like the media mod, I have all the batteries in there, I have some spare SD cards, that sort of thing. And then I also have in here a power bank, fully charged. And what I do is I run when my phone, because my phone I'm using for navigation at the moment, when it runs out of battery or is running low on battery, I run a cable through here. There's a little outlet, and then I can charge the phone directly whilst it's on the bike, and I don't have to deplete the actual onboard battery in the bike. So it's quite a nice setup. I think in the future, when I switch to a proper navigation system, this won't be enough power for that, so I will probably have to hook it up to the bike directly. What else do I have in here? Well, usually I have my selfie stick and the tripods I keep in here whenever I pull over and I want to film something, but obviously I'm using it right now, so it's not in here. I have some mosquito spray. I have a snack because I'm always hungry. I have my headlamp, which is just very useful if you arrive at camp. You want it to be readily accessible so that you can just, if you arrive and it's late, you don't have any problems building your tent. I have a helmet lock, or just a cable lock, very useful if you're leaving your bike for a while and you don't want to leave the stuff just sitting there and you don't want to carry it with you. You can lock it to the bike. You can also lock your motorbike jacket to the bike. You can run it through the sleeve as well as your helmet. So quite useful to have. If someone really wants to break in and steal your stuff, they're going to be able to cut through it, but at least puts off the most opportunistic of criminals. This is a disc brake lock. And finally, here I have a waterproof cover for the tank bag because it's not actually waterproof, but this just allows me to, if it starts pouring, which it has been a lot on this trip, and it will do for the next days, continue, I have something just to protect all my gear on the inside. Yeah, an important thing also to say, why do I keep the equipment I keep in this bag? Well, first of all, it's very readily accessible. It's right there in front of me. I don't need to take any fastening straps off, nothing. I just unzip it. All of the filming equipment, you want to have it accessible for whenever you see something cool that you want to film. That's why I have it there. But also importantly, this is the main bag that I take with me when I get off the bike. So when I'm at a petrol station and going into pay, or when I stop at a cool site and I'm walking away from the bike to take some pictures or whatever, I don't want to leave this gear on the bike, and it's very easy to take on and off, so that's why I keep it in here as well, and I can just take it with me then, and I don't have any concerns that it could get stolen. All right, so that's my tank bag. Then coming to my two bags that sit left and right of the petrol tank. These I strap to the tankguard. They are awesome. They're from Krieger. I think they have a 10-year warranty, perhaps even a lifetime, I can't remember. A little bit pricey, but super worth it. They're 18 liters each. In here, I essentially have a pair of trainers for when you arrive at camp and you just want to change out of your motorbike boots. However, I would also say you can only really do that if it's not pouring with rain. If it's pouring with rain and it's cold, I tend to just keep my motorbike trousers and my motorbike boots on because they're fully waterproof, and can be quite useful when you're building the tent or whatever. You have like knee pads to lean on to keep your old and fragile knees protected. However, very useful if you're parked somewhere for a few nights and you want to go off, whatever, you're in a town and you want to go to a restaurant, you don't want to wear your motorbike boots in a restaurant. It's good to have an extra pair of shoes with you. Obviously it takes up space, but it's quite useful to have, and I have used them a few times on this trip. What I'm thinking of doing, because these are just very simple jogging shoes, I think I might replace them in the future with a pair of trail runners if I'm in the mountains and I want to stop for a night and I want to go for a nice hike. These trainers are not really suitable for that. A pair of trail runners, you are ready to go straight out of the box. Some additional tension belts in there for strapping stuff down to the bike in case any of my other tension belts break. I have my helmet cleaner to clean the visor because it does get quite covered in flies and muck along the way. Flip-flops for when I am showering. And I have all my tools in here. On the one hand, just to keep it dry, obviously, and on the other hand, it's just very useful to have a sort of contained space that it all sits within. That's why I've worked quite a lot with various dry bags on this trip. In here, I just have some basic tools. I have also some gloves if I need to go at the chain, or if I'm touching anything that's going to be a little bit greasier, I don't get my hands covered. I've got some great gloves for that, also give you some additional grip. I haven't needed to use them yet, fortunately, but very good to have with you, and in previous trips I didn't. I know it's outrageous, but I didn't have tools with me, and these are just very useful. I also especially took them with me this time because I attached a new luggage rack for this trip, and I didn't attach it with thread lock, and I was a bit concerned if the screws come loose. Over time, at speed, with all the vibrations, if the screws come loose, I'm going to need to be able to fasten them again. So I also have some thread lock in here as well to give them an extra strong grip if it's needed. But yeah, that's what I keep in there. All right, coming to the other tankguard bag. Oh, and I didn't say before, these are great. They clip directly onto the tankguard without needing any additional tension belts. So there's no additional flapping around that you need to take care of. It's all just directly on the bag. Such nice detailing, reinforced stitches, super sturdy bags, love them. In here, this is my clothes bag. So again, operating with dry bags here. I used to use packing cubes, but packing cubes, A, are not waterproof, and B, you can't compress them as much as you can a dry bag. So that's why I use dry bags. I have one dry bag for all of my active gear, so active tops, shorts, leggings, anything like that has more of a functional purpose. I keep in one bag. The other one I keep for pants and socks, that kind of thing. These have a little bit of air in them at the moment, but just to show you what I mean, you can really compress them down and then fold them all the way and create that very compressed down effect, which is what I like about them. And then I have one additional dry bag that has like all of my regular clothing in. And when I say all of my regular clothing, a very, very limited selection of regular clothing. One pair of trousers, one t-shirts, and one hoodie. All right, and coming to the final bag is the one that goes on my back. This I want to keep as light as possible. So essentially, in the actual main compartment, all I have in there is an extra pair of gloves. So the other pair of gloves are the ones that I'm wearing at that moment. In this case, these are my summer gloves, which are not waterproof, but have the advantage of having a much better grip on the handlebars, so you have much finer control, which is why I do like to ride with them when I can. I put them in here for today because it's going to be raining and it's cold, so I'm going to wear my waterproof thermal gloves on the bike today. So that's what I have. The rest of the compartment is empty. Why is it empty? Because if I arrive somewhere and I want to go to a shop before I set up camp, I like to have an empty space that I can put the groceries in, and I can just keep them all nice and safe on the way to camp. I also have in here at the top rain cover for the backpack, so that if it starts to rain, this is not waterproof. Oh, it's mildly waterproof. I put the cover over the top just to keep it all dry, because I don't want the bag to get soaking. It's very difficult to get things dry again once they are soaking wet. But very importantly on this bag, what else do I have? I have my water bladder in here. It just sits in the back there, so it doesn't interfere with the main compartment. And then I can run the tube with the valve, the mouth valve. I can just run it down the strap, which is awesome. So when I'm sitting on the bike and I pull up somewhere, I just want to have a quick drink and I don't want to faff around trying to fish out a water bottle from one of my bags, I just have the valve right there. Super easy to take a drink and hydrate, baby. Yeah, so that is my whole setup. It's a lot of gear. I know there are ways to reduce it. I know there's lots of motorcyclists who also go on longer trips and they ride with a lot less gear. And to be honest, when I'm riding around the street, I never see anyone that's carrying as much stuff as I am. An alternative would be to slim down on the camping gear. There are sleeping bags that are smaller. There are tents that are significantly smaller, sleeping setups that I could also reduce size and weight in. Yeah, and obviously filming equipment, that's something I don't really want to forego. That's something that I really enjoy using, and that's why that's additional space, obviously, that it takes up on your journey. But in summary, lots of gear, but everything has its purpose. There's not really been any item on this trip that I haven't used, so I'm satisfied that at least I brought stuff that I actually got use out of. And yeah, I'm gonna pack this all up now and get it strapped onto Bossy, my Himalayan, and then I'm gonna hit the road. So I will catch you guys in a little bit. A little bit more oh, mosquito, got you. So I just killed the mosquito bugger that was keeping me up last night and made me move into the sitting room because it was buzzing around my ear, and I just got him. So what a success that already is for the day.